renamed the land of Israel, and they called it Palestine after the historic enemies of Israel, the Philistines. They also renamed the city of Jerusalem. The truth of history is this, that Israel has been ruled by the Babylonians, the Greeks, the Persians, the Romans, the Crusaders, the Ottoman Empire, and the British Empire in the 20th century. The Palestinians have never owned this land. They have no legitimate claim to this land, not now, not tomorrow, and not ever. Secondly, Christians support Israel because God said to Abraham, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. This is God's foreign policy statement concerning the Jewish people and the Jewish state. Walk with me for just a moment through the pages of world history as the nations that persecuted the Jews have been crushed by the mighty right hand of God. Pharaoh and his army were drowned in the Red Sea. The most powerful man on the face of the earth was reduced to fish food in a matter of minutes. The firstborn in every Egyptian home died without blood over the doorpost. Haman and his sons were hanged on the gallows they built for the Jewish people. Where are the Babylonians? Where are the Romans? Where are the Greeks? Where are the Persians? Where is the Ottoman Empire? Where is that lunatic Adolf Hitler and his goose-stepping Nazi hordes? They are all footnotes in the boneyard of human history. Where is Israel? Where are the Jewish people? Where is the apple of God's eye? They are alive and well in the state of Israel. They are ruling the only democratic society in the Middle East. Their army has defeated every enemy in the field, and the flag of Israel flies over Jerusalem, and so shall it forever be. As Americans, we remember 9/11. We remember where the Palestinians were. They were dancing in the streets while Americans were dying in the flaming Twin Towers in New York and in the ruins of the Pentagon. Israel lowered her flag to half-mast and mourned with us. That's a friend. That's a friend. And we thank you for it. Thirdly, Christians support Israel because as Christians we have a debt of gratitude to the Jewish people. The Jewish people have given us every article of our faith. The patriarchs, the prophets, the Torah, the first family of Christianity are Jewish. Jesus of Nazareth was a rabbi, and he made this shocking statement that few evangelicals ever speak about. He said, salvation is of the Jews. The point is this: if you take away the Jewish contribution to Christianity, there would be no Christianity. The Jews do not need Christianity to explain their existence, but Christianity cannot explain our existence without Judaism. The roots of Christianity are Jewish, and they are holy. Fourthly, we support Israel and the Jewish people because anti-Semitism is sin. And as sin, it damns the soul. It's time for Christians around the world to stop praising the dead Jews of the past, being Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, while slandering the Jews who live across the street. They're the same family. In Christian theology, the first thing that happens when Messiah comes back to earth is the judgment of the nations. And the basis of that judgment is this: how did you treat the state of Israel? And how did you treat the Jewish people? The Bible says, inasmuch as you have done it unto the least of these my brethren, speaking of the Jewish people, you have done it unto me. There is a payday someday for every anti-Semite, for every word of abuse, and for every act of abuse that God himself will oversee. Fifthly, we support Israel because Israel's war with terrorists is also America's war with terrorists. This is a war for the survival of Western civilization. The terrorists have demonstrated in the attack of 9/11 they have the will to destroy us, but not the power. Soon they will have the power. Iran, as we speak, is working feverishly to develop nuclear weapons and medium-range missiles that can reach London, Jerusalem, and New York City. The president of Iran has called for the destruction of Israel and the domination of America under Islamic rule. He has pledged to share Iran's nuclear weapons with the Islamic world. These goals are not secrets kept from the world. These nuclear goals are published on the front pages of the newspapers of the world and on international television. We can safely say that the president of Iran is the new Hitler in the Middle East. He is to be taken seriously. We have a common enemy. America and Israel must stand together to stop Iran's nuclear threat that could engulf the Middle East in a nuclear holocaust that could end the world as we know it. Israel is not under obligation to commit national suicide for world peace. Israel and America must address this countdown to terror that's coming from Iran. The liberal media blame suicide bombing in the streets as desperation from occupation. But let's look at the truth of history. The first major terrorist bombing committed by Arabs against the Jewish state occurred 10 weeks before the Jewish state was born. On Sunday morning, February the 22nd, 1948, in anticipation of Israel's independence, a triple truck bomb was detonated by Arab terrorists on Ben Yehuda Street in what was then the Jewish section of Jerusalem. 54 people were killed, hundreds were wounded. It is obvious that Arab terrorism is not caused by desperation from occupation, not caused from poverty, but is caused by the very idea that a Jewish state exists. There are liberals in America who say if we give these terrorists what they want, if we try to understand them, we can live in peace. That's utter nonsense. This brain-dead logic has been proven by world history to be totally wrong. In the dawning of World War II, England sent Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain to visit another fanatic named Adolf Hitler. Chamberlain gave Hitler what he wanted, Czechoslovakia. Chamberlain returned to England foolishly jabbering about peace in our time. His philosophy of give the fanatics what they want was like throwing raw meat to a ravenous lion. Hitler took all that they would give and then dragged the world into 12 years of living hell that saw 6 million Jewish people systematically slaughtered. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. There is no compromise with fanatics that call for the death of America and for Israel to be blown off the map. There is no compromise, not now, not ever. During the Second World War, Roosevelt and Hitler didn't try to understand Nazism and didn't try to understand Hitler. They didn't try to see Hitler's point of view. They didn't debate the Treaty of Versailles. They said all Nazism is evil and nothing justifies it. Today in Jerusalem, let us also say, nothing justifies terrorism, not ever. We're not here to understand it. We're not here to psychoanalyze it. we're here to put our heads and hearts together, saying there is only victory over it. Nothing justifies human bombers in the streets of Jerusalem, murdering innocent women and children. Nothing justifies a member of the United Nations, specifically Iran, calling for Israel, another member of the United Nations, to be wiped off of the map. Nothing justifies that. It is altogether fitting that the United Nations should expel Iran from the United Nations until they submit to the rule of law established by the community of nations. Terrorism is a cancer. You either get the cancer or the cancer gets you. It's just that simple. I believe the roadmap to peace as it exists is fatally flawed. First, it is a violation of the Bible, which I believe from cover to cover. For God says, the nation that divides the land of Israel, He personally will bring it to judgment, and that includes the United States of America. Four years after 9/11, we still cannot declare victory over the war on terror. Osama bin Laden and other enemies are still at large. The Bush doctrine states you are either with a terrorist or you're with us. And if you sponsor or support the terrorist, you are a terrorist. And that's a good doctrine. But with that definition, the U.S. Congress must ask itself if giving millions in foreign aid to the Palestinian Authority and supporting statehood for a people whose actions can be defined as terrorist, are we not in fact supporting terror rather than fighting terror? In closing, the roadmap to peace calls for Israel to make all of the major sacrifices for peace, and hoping in blind faith that the Palestinians will sign a piece of paper and suddenly become a democratic society. That's madness. Israel has taken a huge gamble for peace. In my opinion, this should be the end of Israel's withdrawal until the Palestinians fulfill their obligations listed in the roadmap document. What have they done? Name one thing they have done to fulfill their part of the bargain. They have not stopped their terrorist attacks. They have not laid down their arms. They have not dismantled the terrorist infrastructure, including Hamas and Islamic Jihad. What is their schedule to complete their task? When is it likely to be done, and when? When Israel pulled out of Gaza, the Palestinians burned the synagogues. There was chaos and disorder. Armed terrorists crossed the border. The U.S. State Department must ask itself this question: what kind of state will Palestine be in the war against terror? Will it be a friend or a foe against Israel and America? I predict it will be a foe, and the peace map as it exists is a blueprint for war, not lasting peace. As friends of Israel, we support your choice because you are a democracy. But there are millions of us in America who are anxious for Israel to tell Washington and the world, our part of the withdrawal is over until the Palestinians keep their part of the deal, and if they don't, the roadmap is finished. It's the dead end. We're getting off the bus. It's time for Christians and Jews to put their hearts and heads together and send this message to Washington and the world. Hands off Judea and Samaria. Hands off Jerusalem. There can be no peace until Jerusalem has a real partner for peace. God bless Israel. God bless America. And God bless each of you.